Alright, so we rolling. Hello? Okay, there we go. I just gotta make sure that plays, so in case, Shit, wait a minute, who the fuck called me? Okay. But what's up, everybody? Mohan13 here, and you saw where we left off last time. So then, we start our story off right after a little girl bumped into Lincoln. As Lincoln looks at her, he sees a small, I say about 5 to 6 year old girl with white hair and bandages. The bandages are what immediately set something off for Lincoln. Same thing with Izuku, Chan. Basically, for everyone there, it sets it off as Lincoln picks up the girl and asks her if she's okay. Well, just putting her back on her feet. With the girl showing that she's scared. So Lincoln does the only thing he knows how to do and just gives her a pat on the head to comfort her. This is when they see him show up. Which, things go out in canon pretty much from here until now. Since even though with there being 3 additional people there, they wouldn't have stopped Eri from leaving. But, unbeknownst to Overhaul, Lincoln did snatch something. A bandage. There. One of Eri's bandages. And so we see something happen. So we see things basically happening in canon. Except Lincoln ends up telling her, that, hey, you found the bandage. Which Lincoln doesn't tell it immediately as him and Izuku try to work on and find the way to re-access the Vulcan DNA. Which, after just going to the Plumber HQ for it, they get it. Which unlocks Wild Mutt and Wolfhound again. Doghound. Back into their playlist. So yeah, with this, we then see Link and Izuku we see Link and Izuku transform. Well, Night Eye knows that they can do it, so he waits until the day where they all supposed to meet. Now, during this time, we see things with the League of Villains. Except we zoom in on the man with the with the mask-like helmet and the claw-like gloves and armor. As we start to see his backstory, how he was a prestigious student in UA in some other hero school that could absorb energy and boost himself until one day it got too out of control. He ended up sucking the life force out from one of his classmates, killing them, which led to a spiral. And now he's basically an energy vampire that needs to sustain food. Now wearing a mask to hide his disheveled face. As we reveal to see this man is Michael Morningstar. Which again, you know who this is if you watch Ben 10. If you don't, basically, he's an energy vampire. In all layman terms, Michael Morningstar is an energy vampire. The more energy he takes, the more powerful he is, power hungry. But he also kind of needs it or else he'll turn into a fucking dark skeleton. So, hey, there we go. But let's just get started with the raid. Now, during the time where they find out that, Overhaul was making the bullets out of Ares' blood, this is when Eye tells that Lincoln ended up snatching a bandage off of Ares. And so Lincoln transforms and is able to smell the bandage. And Lincoln finds out where they are relatively quickly, and after that, this is when the plan starts to set up to raid the base. Which Lincoln doesn't tell anyone anything the same as everyone else in canon, but now then we finally get to the raid when it starts. Things go similar to canon for the most part, until that one dude basically slips inside the walls. Now then, Mirio keeps going ahead while the others fall. Except Lincoln and Izuku end up transforming into a big chill and ice wing as a way to stop their fall. And for those dudes that Takamichi was holding, Clyde ends up freezing them in ice, so... Well, actually no. Clyde is giving Takamichi a piece of his ice, just the ice he can make just in case. which Takamichi ends up using that with the crystals to, well, stop them. Now then, let's get on those things where they really start to change. Mainly Mirio, since he has one for all in this timeline, it makes it a lot easier for him to get to Eri. And also, since he's a lot faster, it makes it a lot harder for Overhaul not to get his ass kicked. Now then, the ass whooping actually does lead to some time being saved here. In all honesty. Yeah, it's not gonna work. Shit. Okay, well, it leads to some time obviously being saved here. But you know what? Fuck it, I'm just gonna do the whole entire overall arc. Why not? Finish it here and now. But yeah. At the same time for them, you know, things go on normally. But here's the thing though. Mirio doesn't end up getting shot as he's able to move fast enough to where he just grabs Eri and moves out of the way of the bullet. Meaning that Mirio doesn't really get his quirk taken in this timeline. Which the next thing they notice is something breaking down the wall, which is revealed to be Clyde's fist. A metal-infused fist. Which after it turns out, it shrinks back to reveal Clyde picked Clyde in an iron coating, well, becoming iron itself, with Chandler with lightning piercing off of him. Then Link and Nezuko, who are just transformed back. Who haven't transformed back yet, which they haven't used the omnitrix in the last couple of days to save up on power, so they can go for a lot longer. Actually, not. Yeah, they have turned back just to save up on more power, though. Now then, we get to the fight. As Overhaul ends up skipping his plan entirely and just absorbing the one dude, I can't remember his name, which he ends up becoming 4R to Overhaul, which then leads to him shooting out his spikes, which after Link and Nezuko hits Omni Omnitrix, a green and orange flash pops out as we see two beams jump up high from out of the sky. And then, as these aliens are represented as slightly grasshopper-like aliens with long legs, and as Lincoln says crash hopper, and Nezuko says, you know what, green bullet, right not? Actually, no. Huh. Yeah, you know what? Let's go with Green Bullet for now. It sounds like a cool name. And, well, because of the omnitrix not being broken and say, Data don't mean Nezuko and Lincoln know everything they're going to do. Which leads to the fight being a lot easier now, as with Overhaul basically getting overwhelmed. Which they don't let Night Eye actually go off to fight Overhaul alone in this timeline. Which means he's never impelled through the stomach. Now then, as we see Link and Nezuko basically jump all around the base, circling Gran Torino's movements, coming around, kicking Overhaul over and over again. With Mirio, with them having, well, obviously Eri dealt like she does in canon and running. Now then, during an oversight, Link ends up transforming back in midair. As spikes come across him as he breaks up the shield. The hell? I thought the watch wouldn't time out that fast. As Lincoln starts to think about things, his anger at Overhaul, everything, which then leads to Overhaul spikes breaking through his shield, but once Lincoln opens his eyes again, a red flame engulfs the entire area, heating it up. What's left standing there is a reddish being with red fiery-like hair made of energy flowing. As we hear the subtle scrounds before the being ends up raising a hit. Before Link, as Nezuko was looking at this, do you remember something that Gwen told him? that Lincoln has a full-on elemental form. But it's a smart idea not to use it since it can cost him his humanity and things like the drawbacks, basically. Is this it? As Lincoln raises his hand, shooting out a massive energy beam, actively taking out half of Overhaul's side here. As Overhaul feels half of his body being vaporized in one clean instant, he starts to lose it even more. Which, trying to attack the energy beam doesn't really work, as Lincoln just sets up a shield before sending out multiple energy beams back. And this is when Chandler, Clyde, and Zuko realize that although before they can even get to Lincoln flies down. Which, as Lincoln also remembered Gwen's words to him, said, as he's told himself that he's not really ready to give up on his humanity yet. As Lincoln just brings back the watch up one more time, slams it down, transforming into, I say Energizer. Yeah. Which Energizer is Lincoln's Chroma Stone, basically. Before Lincoln ends up shooting beams at Overhaul. Which then leads to Zuko transforming into, I say Dynamighty? Yeah. Leads to Zuko transforming into Dynamighty. Which then leads to them actually getting more physical with Overhaul in combat. Although eventually the two who time out and end up getting impaled slightly. Which then leads to Overhaul screaming for Eri to come back. But while this is happening, this is when the roof collapses in. Which then we have Ryuko, Ochako, things happening in Ken, mostly from here. Which, after this, Overhaul manages to get his hands on Eri once more, as Lincoln, Zuko, Crash Hopper and Green Bullet end up rushing up to try to grab Eri. Only for them to time out midair yet again. What the hell? Shit. I think. But as they still use their enhanced strength to hop up on the rocks, since they realize they still have to grab that no matter what happens, they need to save this little girl. And so they still hop forward, basically screaming Eri's name, which Eri finally realizing that they'll do anything to save her, she ends up jumping down. And she ends up laying with Lincoln and Zuko both catching her, as Lincoln yells turbo. But thanks to Lincoln's little elemental energy high that he's still going through right now, it basically tears apart the base. The underground part of it, anyway. Which also leads to them flying outside. Which Lincoln then creates a platform for them as they land on and fly down to the ground, and realizing that Eri's power is coming out. Which this is when Overhaul obviously does what Overhaul does and proceeds to be a dick about it. And he becomes this giant, what would we call it? A gigantic Overhaul, Maximus Overhaul, who knows? Which Lincoln and Zuko does end up tying Eri onto his back since she still was wrapped in Emilio's cape. As they say, alright, come on, number 10. As the two slam down the watches. Which during this time we see is black star as their bodies turn into black silhouettes with stars forming on them as their eyes pop out. As they say, alien and celestial X scream, the two aliens say. Which, unbeknownst to anyone here, but for now, we see the two celestial sapiens raise their hand up at Overhaul, stopping him in his tracks, sending him flying into the air, before they end up teleporting there, giving multiple rounds of damage. Basically all around attacks, everything like that, It's like tearing the Overhaul over and over again. Which even pulling a similar move to what Zuko did in Ken, smacking him with multiple fists. Which they does end up leading the Overhaul flying on the ground to landing there. Except this is only seen sight, and they just stay still. They stop moving. Which, after this, we then peek inside the headspace, where we see Lincoln and Hazuku talking to two beings of heads, Bellicus and Serena. As they see Lincoln and Hazuku talking to these two, they said they only have one turn. This is their only chance they're going to be giving them. But this is when these two finally, as they hear everything that Alien X is capable of doing, Alien Celestial X, they also hear the drawback saying they'll be stuck here forever. Except while they're hearing this, they end up opening their eyes. They see the watches in red. It's cheap. Which then they're immediately hit with the rewind effect, falling to the ground. Which Aizawa was still able to turn it off, so there. With them catching Eri. Yeah, things end a lot better in this timeline from here. Things happened a lot better. Eri's in a coma. Eri's unconscious, unfortunately. With things happening in canon, with Shigaraki stealing his arms. Which also during this time we saw that Dark Star, or Michael, as he tells the League of Villains he wants to join them. As he even tells them that if he need that he'll do anything to survive, even switching teams. And with this, the League of Villains also get a new recruit, Dark Star, growing in their power by a couple. Now then, during this time, we see things happening similar to canon. Eri's in the hospital, but that's about it. I mean, Link and Nezuko have some stab wounds and broken bones besides that. As they also end up as we see the two end up looking at the Celestial Sapien DNA. That's it. As next thing we see them running down in a ship. Well, not a ship, but you know what I mean, the elevator. That elevator. As we see these two end up walking to the lab, Bukic and Drebus, as they ask them, can you do something for us? With them asking Bukic and Drebus if they can make a lock the Celestial Sapien DNA away. And, since we don't know how Ben was able to do this in Ultimate Alien, I mean, we don't really know. But I'm pretty sure Kevin can make the keys. So, I mean, I guess Bukic and Driba could too. And with this, the two keys to lock the Celestial Sapien DNA is completed. With this, we see Link and Nezuko lock them, and then just end up putting the keys around their necks. Now then, as we see these two going to their works. Now then, things kind of return to normal. The work stories weren't interrupted in this universe because of Night Eye's death. Meaning that things are pretty normal from now on. I mean, for now at least. Which Lincoln Nezuko's birthday is coming. Wait a minute, no, they're already 16. Shit, they have their birthdays over the summer. You know what? Yeah, we see Lincoln Nezuko just hanging out with Kevin, Ben, and Gwen at Mr. Smoothies. Well, with Chandler and Clyde, too, obviously. So we just see them talking, and that's where we end this What If off. Now then, I'm eating more on